You could take the three businesses I've been associated with and look at those as examples. And those three companies, Shazam, which I founded, Google, and Dropbox, where I spent 12 years working. In all three of those cases, if you think about what did those products really do? Well, they basically did something that was already done by other companies, but they did it with less friction. I'm Chris Barton, I'm the founder of Shazam, and today we're going to talk about friction and how you can reduce it. And what is friction? Friction is anything that a person using your product has to either do or think as they use your product. And each time that they do something or think something, they're putting in a little extra effort. It's very important to make something that's simple, because if it's simple, it's not only easy to learn how to use, but it's also easy to use every time you use it. So simplicity is incredibly rewarding to users. Simplicity is what provides them with this delightful experience that they want. Cognitive load is the effort required of your brain every time you use a product. You can think of it as a taxing experience on your brain. So you have to think through and recall something in order to use a product. Or you might have to make a decision, for example, do I want to click here or click here? Which choice do I want to make? So anything that involves mental effort is a cognitive load. And whenever you eliminate cognitive load and you make something that much easier to use, that much easier to achieve your goal without having to make these decisions, without having to tax your brain, you're creating something that has reduced friction. And when you create something that has reduced friction, you're creating something that's delightful. One example I love is that Google recognized that one piece of friction was speed. Simply the amount of time you had to wait between clicking the search box and then getting the result. And that speed was so fast, it was milliseconds, and yet they still obsessed with speed. They still obsessed with making it faster and faster and faster. So much so that they would invest in data centers around the world, in fiber optic cables running across the earth to carry their communications. They even built their own browser, all in the interest of making the search experience faster and faster, and by making it faster, therefore eliminating friction in the experience. And they found that even milliseconds of increased speed would lead to more delight and greater market share for their search engine. An obsession with eliminating friction of every type, including that tiny moment of just waiting for the result. So in the case of Shazam, you could find out the name of a song, but you might have to go ask someone what it is. And then that's a friction, that's an interaction. We had to create this technology that could identify songs out of thin air despite noise in an instant. Again, an incredibly difficult problem, so difficult that professors from Stanford and MIT said it was impossible, but we had to invent that to eliminate the friction. So you can see the incredible effort sometimes that you have to go to eliminate the friction. But if you do, the delight to the end user can be tremendous. In the case of Dropbox, they told me that the predecessors to Dropbox had a single step, one step, and that one step was to upload a file into the cloud. But when Dropbox invented synchronization, now the file was on your computer and in the cloud, always at the same time being synchronized. And so you never had to click upload, you never had to click download, and you never had to do that one step. Instead, you had 0 steps. And the 0 steps were just having a file in the Dropbox folder on your computer. And my favorite thing is that Dropbox said to me, Chris, the difference between 1 and 0 is infinite. And that's a mathematical truth. The difference between 0 and 1 is infinite. If you can get your steps from 1 to 0, you might just have the astronomical impact that Dropbox did. So I think that one of the most difficult parts of of eliminating friction is that we have a tendency to simply accept friction, and we don't push hard enough to try to find where does the friction exist, and then when we do identify the friction, how hard do we try to eliminate it? And so I like to compare this process of identifying and then eliminating friction, I like to compare it to planning a surprise party. Think of the effort you go to when you plan a surprise party. For example, if you plan a normal party, you just simply send the invitations out and people come. But if you plan a surprise party, you have to think through every step of the interaction from the very beginning to the very end, the moment of the surprise. You have to think about what time will people come, and what about the person who's going to be surprised? And how are you going to allow the person that's going to be surprised in the door to make sure that they don't know about the surprise? And what time will people show up, and how will they act? And you're thinking through every little element so that you can realize this surprise outcome for the guest. And so similarly with friction, you're thinking through every element of an experience more than you would naturally think about. So you're thinking about when the user is using your product, what do they have to do before they get started? What do they have to know before they get started? Are they going to have any concern as they use your product? Are they going to have to, what kind of things are they going to have to do? Or maybe they have to wait for something. Even waiting is a form of friction. So you're thinking through every little element of what could be friction, all the millions of different things that they could think or do along the way. And then as you identify them, you're then trying to eliminate them. What's important to remember is that friction is ultimately the barrier to adoption and growth. Friction is the thing that keeps your users away. So the takeaway today is to think about your product. Think about like you were planning the surprise party. What is the thing that you can spot when you analyze everything about the experience, end to end, everything that your user will have to think or do? What is the one thing that you can remove that will make it that much easier and therefore delight that end user?